By far the best match of this year's Best of the Super Junior tournament, El Desperado and Taiji Ishimori proved they deserve to headline the second biggest New Japan show of the year, Dominion 6-9 in Osaka-Jo Hall. Granted, it didn't take much to be more impressive than the heavyweight title garbage match, pitting the sloppy brawling of the master of the back rake, Jon Moxley, with Plumber Wrench in tow, against the fearful leader of the hot mess, Evil, in a lumberjack match that essentially begged for more of the endless interference that's turned tons of people off to the current new American pro wrestling product, to distract from how inept the two actual competitors are. Desperado and Ishimori was consistently good action though, the only full start to finish effort we saw all tournament. Desperado headlining Dominion at age 40 wasn't something anyone would have predicted even a few years ago. Hiromu Takahashi fully became the face of the New Japan Junior division when Kushida signed with the WWE in 2019. Despite being 4 years older than Takahashi, and not even being a player in the division yet at 35 years old when this tragedy occurred, Desperado has slowly and improbably took over as the ace of the division in the last 3 years, making the most of his opportunity when Hiromu went down in 2021, and COVID restrictions still kept most of the foreigners out of Japan. Desperado was 26 years old when he debuted, something that would have been unheard of in the major Japanese promotions during the 1980s, when Giant Baba initially rejected Kenta Kobashi without even giving him a second look, because he was a 19-year-old without a major athletic background. In more modern times, many of the juniors are graduating from that division by the time Desperado really got going in it, if not well before. Despite successful junior title reigns in the first half of 2021 and 2022, Desperado still lost to Hiromu Takahashi in the 2022 Super Junior final after losing to him in 2020. In fact, neither of these two have ever won this tournament, despite being 3-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champions, as Ishimori lost to Hiromu in the good but really overrated 2018 final. Desperado had the best showing in this year's tournament, with good matches against Kosei Fujita, TJP, and Doki. He is one of the least spectacular guys involved, but he's arguably the most technically and fundamentally sound. Because he's about doing the little things well, rather than awing the audience with his stunts, he's more able to maintain a consistent level throughout a long, grueling tournament. He was very diligent and disciplined in putting the extra little bit of effort in to make it look like there was some actual resistance and struggle going on in his matches. Ishimori was the most disappointing wrestler of this year's tournament going into the final. He wrestled very half-heartedly and lackadaisically, particularly in the overrated semifinal where TJP, who had given amongst the strongest and most consistent efforts throughout the tournament, was trying as usual, but getting almost no help from Ishimori, who was still in the mode of just trying to survive the slog. Ishimori's tournament matches felt among the most cooperative because he wasn't working the holds, moving the way he's capable of to get to his spots quickly enough, or disguising the feeding in any real manner. I'm sure Yoshinobu Kanemaru was more underwhelming, because he checked out by the time he transferred to New Japan in 2017, but at 41 years old, after missing 5 months last year with a neck injury, there were questions about how hard Ishimori was still willing and able to push himself in the ring. Ishimori still keeps himself in amazing condition, and he answered those questions positively here. He finally showed consistent explosion in his movement, as well as energy in his performance, actually appearing to be trying to win, rather than simply surviving by filling time. This wasn't the usual junior final, partly because Desperado isn't your typical New Japan junior. They didn't go for the big highs, avoiding anything crazy or next level, but they also didn't wind up with the big lows by pausing the match with endless selling to stretch it out forever. They kept things moving, kept the quality reasonably high, and gave us a little bit of everything. There were stories, but they found reasons to quickly move past them, rather than digging into them all that much. They each injured a body part that played into the submission they want to be winning with anyway, but they'd rather set those submissions up, or do whatever they could to maintain the advantage, and the opponent also didn't just conveniently lay around allowing their weakest part to be endlessly beat on. Ishimori's performance was kind of mixed in the opening technical wrestling, a lot better and more active than he's been in the league portion, but still not as good as we've seen from many of Desperado's opponents. He quickly picked things up after an eye gouge with a swan dive hurricanrana and a triangle moonsault, and he was on his game from here. In fact, Ishimori was probably the better performer in the final because he had the explosion and ability to do spectacular things that Desperado largely lacks, and his strikes even had more zip on them. Desperado was definitely the glue that held the match together, and some of Ishimori being more diligent in the technical aspects and transitions was definitely due to Desperado's positive influence. That being said, Desperado's level didn't rise that much above the consistently good wrestler we saw in the league, while Ishimori was almost night and day, doing his best to turn back the clock to his hard-working Noah days when he was one of the most explosive and exciting juniors around. The closest there was to a theme in this match began after the dive when Ishimori injured Desperado's shoulder on the post. He took the turnbuckle pad off while Desperado was recovering, whipping Desperado into the naked corner before Desperado even realized there was no padding. Ishimori was more than happy to play heel, but made sure to keep it a wrestling match despite the random shortcuts. Ishimori wanted to be more diligent in working the shoulder, but Desperado was able to test his neck, countering the superstar Enzugiri with a backdrop, then hitting a tope con hiro. Desperado was more interested in working Ishimori's knees than his neck, because that plays into his numero dos finisher. This also didn't really get going though, because while Desperado avoided a jumping knee in the corner, Ishimori took advantage of the missing turnbuckle pad again and hit a shoulder breaker. By the time Desperado came back turning La Mistica into numero dos, they were already ushering in the finishing sequence. Desperado was able to apply numero dos again after a sit-out knee breaker. Ishimori kept having answers for him though. In fact, he turned this into a flash pin, and while he appeared to be following with La Magistral, Ishimori instead took the opportunity to abuse the bad shoulder. Ishimori hit La Mistica this time into a lengthy bone lock, as he was able to pull Desperado back into the center twice, but the second time Desperado finally countered into numero dos. Ishimori finally escaped with the Canadian Destroyer. Ishimori used a low blow when Red Shoes was hunched over endlessly, protecting himself from what never really rose to being worthy of calling a ref bump, leading to a near fall from the Gato clutch. Desperado got a near fall with his Pinche Loco, while Ishimori had a near fall with a reverse Bloody Sunday. This was really where the match could have used something extra to put it over the top. They spammed a lot of finishers, and the match reasonably could have gone either way in the sense that they've split their previous 4 singles matches, but you knew this was all about Desperado finally getting his Super Junior, going into his pay-per-view produce show the following day. Ishimori's shady tactics finally came back to haunt him when Desperado stopped the Bloody Cross and ran him into the exposed turnbuckle. Desperado hit 2 more Pinche Locos for the win. Desperado finally getting his Super Junior trophy was nice to see. Even though the moment for it had arguably passed, it was still very well deserved. This wasn't an all-time great final by any means, but didn't actively annoy me like vast portions of the 2018 Ishimori vs. Hiromu or 2019 Will Ospreay vs. Shingo Takagi. Ultimately, they stayed within themselves and successfully did the match they set out to do. I give this match 3.5 out of 5 stars.